Meg Sweeney, and I'm going to introduce John to you. So John and I met probably 20 years ago, I think, and John originally was a teacher of the deaf, and he and his wife, lovely wife Lynn, worked in remote Indigenous communities for quite some time. John has also been the principal of a special school, and he became very interested in the work of Wolfensberger in the late 70s.
Yes.
Yeah, and because he wanted things to be better for people with disabilities and novel for people in general, really. And so that led him into a whole lot of new work around teaching social role valorisation and advocacy. You've been very big in the citizen advocacy movement as well, John, haven't you? So that's a bit about his professional life. And also, 4 years ago, he has 4 adult children. Is that right? 3.
4 adult children.
4 adult children who all have children. And he became the proud grandfather of a little girl who has Down syndrome. So he is also now a family member. And as I heard him say at lunchtime, now I have to put on my talk into action.
I haven't even heard that comment.
No pressure there, John. Okay.
And I'd like to introduce Meg to you. We've been mates for a long time. We've been in each other's houses. We've drunk far too much wine together. But Meg has just been an amazing person to me because she too has adult children, one of whom also has Down syndrome. And Meg and I have trained together. We've done lots of education together and learning, and in a sense sharing a lot of learning that we've done over time. And so Meg has learned a great deal and shared a great deal about the journey that they've had with their daughter Jocelyn, the roles that Jocelyn now enjoys, her part in the community that she has, and so much learning that has come from that. So we want to share some of that with you this afternoon.
And he's a very patient man, I'll have to say, John, because I'm one of those annoying people that asks incessant questions. You know, if someone knows something that I don't know, I have to know it too. And incredibly nosy. And I know I drove John absolutely mad for about the first 5 years with question after question after question after question. So thank you for putting up with me.
Well done.
Okay. So you're going to ask me a question.
I'm going to ask you a question. I get to reverse these things. So we wanted today to look at this application of these ideas that we've heard so far about planning and the good life, and begin to see how this might play itself out on a person-by-person basis, so to look at that as an individual. So why do you think planning is important, Meg?
Okay, we've already talked a lot about planning, but just briefly, the first thing, if you don't plan, you're not going to get any money from the NDIS. Straightforward. So you need to have a plan. The other thing is, if you don't have a plan, you don't have any direction. You don't know where you're going. And in this sort of atmosphere, as Linda said on her thing, like the top of Jacob, this is what they choose for Jacob, the top line. But this is still on offer too, you know, centre-based programs, group homes, respite, all of those sorts of things. So if you don't have a plan, you're more likely to take whatever's offered. You've got no mechanism to make your choice with. So that's why your planning is really important too. And the other thing is, without a plan, you've got no measure of quality. You've got no measurement to think, are we getting to where we want to be or not? And also, we're all hearing, you know, my life, my way, get a life, all of those sorts of terms. If you haven't got a plan, well, what does that life even look like? So you have to have a bit of an idea of what it is that you're wanting. So, John, in your experience, where do roles fit in to helping in the planning?
Yeah, lovely.
Roles.
Well, you might say there's a means versus the end. And we've heard about the end today in terms of the good life. Linda did a lovely discussion of the good life, because there's things that everybody wants. They want to contribute, they want to belong, they want to be healthy, they want to have a life that's secure, they want to feel a sense of belonging in their community and have relationships. And this has come to be known as the good life. And so it's a kind of concept that occurs in literature and in much writing, social science, anthropology, even public policy and the like, that people want the good life, and it's what we all want. And the beautiful thing about it is it's achievable. but you have to put in effort. So the planning bit is as well, what does this good life look like? And how might roles? So what we found is that there's a link between roles and this good life. And the good life, though, is also a touchstone. The good life is like the things that you most want. And what you most want constitutes your values. That is, the things that you put value into. I want this, therefore I value it. And sometimes when we make decisions, we have to touch the touchstone. What is the touchstone? Well, we're after the good things of life. And therefore, how does our decision about whether we should go there, or different things we do, how much of that is consistent with what it is we want the most? And what we're saying here is that, is it consistent with the good life? Now, what else we know is that the good life gets achieved because other people give it to you. The good life isn't something you can purchase. And therefore you have to be in a situation where people value you so much they would be willing to give you the friendship, give you the opportunities, allow you to contribute, want you to belong, be part of a team, be in a community, relate to you. And it's like, well, all right, under what conditions would that be likely to occur? How would I need to see people differently, where I would see them as so valuable, I would naturally extend that to them? Because sometimes we want to kind of beat people up for the good life, saying, give them a good life or else, kind of a sense of threat and of a coercion. You can't coerce the good life out of people. So as we relate even to these council areas, we have to be careful, demanding inclusion is like demanding the good life. When it's given voluntarily, it's extended, we get it because other people love us. And so it's about how to position someone where the good life gets extended to them virtually automatically. And what we know from social science is the way that happens is that they have to see you differently. They can't see you as a person with a diagnosis. They have to see some quality about you that is naturally appealing. And that's where the valued roles come in. When you have a valued role, it changes the way you are seen. And we know lots of families say to us, I don't want him to be known by his diagnosis. I want him to be known as a person. We have this idea of being a person first and having to use person first language. But that's not how you get to be treated as a person first. You get to be treated as a person first when you have a valued role and we see you through your role. And look at all the roles we saw Nathan have. So the Down syndrome is irrelevant. Complete irrelevancy to who Nathan is, because it's the roles that speak to who he is. And so it comes in very handy. So you realise in your planning, if you're not incorporating the idea of roles being obtained, then we're less likely to achieve the good life. If the only roles you have in life are negative ones, then that won't entice other people to treat you with value and extend the good things of life to you. So valued roles are your means of getting the good things of life. And if we don't get the valued roles, we probably won't get the good things of life. We call that like, if this, then that. And so that helps us in our planning decisions to kind of think about what kind of roles might be possible then. So that's a question that arises. What roles are possible for my son and daughter? And as Linda said earlier, well, it depends on your ability to see your gifts and talents and opportunities and go and experiment, have some courage and try some things. And in a sense, you're asking, who is this person? And under what conditions will they flourish and thrive? That they get to do something that speaks to who they really are and taps into a quality that other people can then recognise and extend the qualities to, just like we saw with Jacob, going on trips without his mum, and other people doing that, and not having to be, as it were, berated into doing that. I'm sure they don't do that. You don't get that kind of response. And what's nice about roles, of course, is that it defines who you are. Your roles and who you are kind of one of the same thing. It's very hard to separate people from the roles that they have. Although you can see people who have very few roles and probably only their negative roles, and we see those as well. And everybody kind of, sidesteps around those people. And so that's why valued roles are so crucial. They automatically influence how other people see you and then treat you. want people to be better treated, have opportunities that enable the good things of life. And so roles give a deeper sense of being in the world rather than just superficial things of a schedule and a list of activities. Roles allow you to become something and someone rather than just do something. And of course we often think about activity schedules. Where will he be on Monday? What will he be doing on Thursday night? When in fact we could be thinking on what is he becoming? Who is he really? And then we see the activities then that match the role, rather than just activities isolated from a role. And who will be doing that for the next 20 and 30 years, and there's no transformation. But when a person acquires a role and becomes that role, it transforms who they are. And they get to discover who they are as well. And we have a short film to show you.
We do.
Emma's a beautiful young 21-year-old who loves music, loves to dance. Emma happens to have Down syndrome. She also happens to have a mild form of autism laid over that and a hearing loss. And she was born with a cleft palate. So the combination of the hearing loss, the cognitive issues with the Down syndrome and the cleft palate mean Em's got challenges with speech. If Emmy could read or write, everything would be all right. But she can't. She can't read or write.
You finished now? Okay.
I was working for the Justice Department a number of years ago, and I was visiting homes where people with disability lived. And I came to this particular house for the first time, and a young Down syndrome girl came out, and she was calling out, "Mum, Mum." And she saw me, and she was most upset that I wasn't Mum. When I asked the support worker there, "What's this about?" she explained that the girl's mum had died some 5 years earlier and that she was still very grief-stricken and traumatised. It made me realise that when I finished work that day, I was going home to my daughter and that I needed to think way ahead and plan for her life way beyond my death. What I strive for is for Emma to be like any other 21-year-old, stand alone on her own 2 feet and earn her own living. When she was at school, they used to sometimes take them to the office and do office skills. And Em wasn't interested in anything except using the shredding machine. I wrote letters and sent them out to businesses, hundreds of letters. But the only response I did get was from a lovely man called Steve Schofield at the credit union.
So the part that stood out for me was that Jo was making a very heartfelt point that she needed to find a way for Emma to have a place in the community and make a difference, and that she was doing everything she could to lead Emma down a path of being independent. Her enthusiasm with shredding and the fact that she couldn't read made her the perfect candidate for something that we also had a need for, which is to have someone do our shredding.
We were driving around in the car one afternoon, Emma and her dad and I, and we were just sort of mucking around thinking of silly names for the business. And she had just finished watching Ninja Turtles. And I said, "What about Master Shredder?" And she loved it. And she went, yeah, that's me, like she is now. So that's how the business came about, and that's how the name came about. To see her now actually saying hello to people, sharing little stories about herself on the iPad and getting so excited about it, and she jumps up and down and goes, it's me. And so it's lovely to see that, and it's nice to see her knowing the routine, wanting to go to work.
Because I got to use my new shredder for the first time.
It was amazing how little effort we needed to input to be able to have such a great outcome for Emma and her family and our organisation.
I just cannot speak enough about how gratifying as a mum that is to see my daughter want to get up and go to work and feel fulfilled that she's doing something, that she's helping and making a difference in her own life, making her way like any other 21-year-old.
Okay, So you can see by that in the planning stage, Emma's mum wasn't choosing from a menu of activities. She was looking at her daughter's gifts and talents and skills and passion, and then looking at, well, what role is there in the community that can fulfil that fits. And so that's how they came up with the role of her role in the business, master shredder, and then went about, putting the letters out. And what we can see from her workplace, some of the indicators of what comes from roles, is that straight away you can see she had a place and belonging in the community because the role fit her so perfectly. The other thing the boss said, did you hear him say? I was amazed at how little effort it took to have her here in the workplace. And yet she's a young woman that, anyone would think required a lot of support. She has an intellectual impairment, autism, a hearing loss, can't read or write. Most people would say, well, she's a candidate for a day program. Right? Would you think in your experience? So with this, she does that role actually with no paid support at all because the role fit is so perfect for her. And the other thing that roles bring is identity to yourself and to others. So you can see, even Emma, she was saying, that's me. I'm Master Shredder. And so that in yourself gives you a greater sense of place, of who you are as a person and your value as well, an internal feeling. But it also gives other people an idea of who you are. And if they can relate to you then in your role. So the other staff in the credit union, she wasn't just an add-on that was coming in to do some strange administrative task that someone dreamt up as an activity to kill time. She was the shredder, master shredder. So it was very clear to them what her role was in the workplace, and that role had value, so they could relate to her through that in an ordinary fashion, an ordinary way. It wasn't strange or weird, it was just typical and ordinary. The other thing that roles bring is expectations. So in that role that Emma had, there's the expectation she gets up in time, she wears her uniform, she's polite at work, she actually does the shredding. And so expectations bring competencies. If no one expects you to ever do anything, how do you ever develop any competency to do that? So in that thing, expecting her to turn up at time gives her the motivation to get out of bed. And again, the mum said, I suppose this is around her identity, seeing her so fulfilled as a woman making a contribution in the world. So if your roles are right, it does give you that sense of a desire to get out of bed in the morning because you're living your life's purpose, if you like. The other thing is that roles offer, they don't guarantee it, so we're not Pollyannas here, but they do offer the opportunity for greater relationships. So you can see in that workplace, she's encountering other people in a typical and ordinary way, the other staff. Now, they're all probably not going to be, instant friends, but the more people you know, the more likely you are to engage in relationship with them. And if you think about our own lives, where did we meet the people that became close to us? Generally school, sporting team, club membership, workplace, like where did you meet your spouse or your lover or, those sorts of things. It's through the roles you've had in your life. And so in thinking about Emma's life, just having that role has introduced her to many more people. So the opportunity of further relationship is there, And the other thing is roles often open doors to other roles. We have role cascading happening. So like a lot of people, they start volunteering in a role, that can become permanent employment. You start volunteering in a role, and then someone who knows you in that role knows another role and invites you into that. So once you start, fulfilling roles, often other doors start to open for far more roles in your life. So even if you think about who here's been on a committee, okay, many of us, okay, why don't you attend the AGM? You're laughing, why? Because you'll get a job, that's it. You'll walk away as the secretary, the publicity officer, the chair, something, right? Yeah. And so most of us have got so many roles in our life, we don't want another one, right? But if you think about people with disability, often they have very few roles in their life. And so that's why it's so important to help them develop more roles, because that's how we develop our lives and our identity and our place and relationships, and all of those things flow from roles. Just to finish off, if I haven't convinced you already, roles enable you to participate with others. Often we see, I suppose because it's always in the forefront of my mind, I'm always, no matter where I go, and even travelling overseas, I've observed people with disability in community, but not of community. So they're around, you see people, but they're not actually in, participating on a level that other people are. They're like observing or being observed. And so roles actually give the opportunity for participation with other people in community and contribution. So you're actually offering something. And that reciprocity actually of participation and contribution is also a key dynamic in the formation of relationships. There's no reciprocity, you're unlikely to develop any sort of relationship. So participation is the key there. Okay, so I think, John, I've done what roles can bring. Okay, so now we're going to spend a bit of time. John, can you just give us some ideas on how you can think about roles for your family member, and also, or someone with a disability, and how employment of support, paid employment of support or voluntary support, it can be either, how you should think about that in relation to supporting the role, because that's vital, getting that right.
Good on you, Meg. Yeah, thank you. Did you notice that as Meg went through the things that flow from the benefits of a valued role, how similar they were to the good things of life? Right? Relationships, belonging, participation, growth and learning. And so almost automatically a valued role brings many of these assets with it. And because it brings assets, it makes the person look different as well, as I said earlier. And that's important for the communities. If we go to the community and say, we want you to fix this problem, in a sense, the community's not interested in the problems we have. They want to know what assets the people can bring. That's how communities work. They look for assets. What are you going to bring that serves this community? And valued roles do that. If people turn up with problems and we say, you've got to lower the barriers to us, and you just beat up communities. They're already ready, in a sense, I think. And while they're not perfect, and individuals aren't perfect, many communities they'll take much closer notice of people bringing assets and a willingness to serve and contribute. And that's the thing, it's more blessed to give than receive. They want to see people that are going to give, and that too is one of those benefits that come from roles. You get to contribute. Some of you may have read the book by Hugh McKay that discusses that. It's mysteriously called The Good Life, and it's a great little read, and gives you more detail. So now we want to look at some how aspects. How do you craft some roles? How do we think about this in the lives of people you know and support in your various ways? And the first thing is to keep in mind that we need some roles that other people value. This was an idea of Mark Gold's. In fact, he talked about not just learning something, but learning something that other people value. And while we might take toilet training as an important skill, it isn't one that builds you. You don't get brownie points for being toilet trained. Right? It's not like you went off to the toilet when you came back, we all gave you a little clap. So, good toileting, something like that. It doesn't do that, does it? So in thinking about valued roles, you are thinking about the kind of things that other people would recognise as being that kind of asset. Another feature is if the person is involved in activities others don't value, we may be able to alter it in such a way as it becomes more valuable. In other words, you might take a neutral role and make it more valuable, or even a negative role and say, can we upgrade this? Could we make it become more valuable? And one guy I know used to just flush the toilet. And they thought, well, he really enjoys the movement here, it seems, of the water and so on. And he was given a job in a large cafeteria to process and make coleslaw. Same kind of movement, put in the cabbage, you know. And just like we saw with the young lass on the film, some of these tasks that sit within roles are intrinsically reinforcing. You don't have to stand over them to make a person do this. It's intrinsically reinforcing. And you can't say to them, like, if you keep doing that for 2 weeks, we'll give you something like payment, so you better keep doing it now and think of the future. So many people will need, you might say, tasks within their roles that have an immediate payoff. You can't say, wait for 2 weeks. It's a bit what we say to high school kids, study now for the next 13 years and you'll get a good job. And you know how effective that is. So some people, and the lass was a very good example, the task itself has reinforcement within the task. And see how motivated she was to do it. So you're not standing over, it was intrinsically meaningful to her in the moment. And one of the reasons for that is that you can see the change you're making. You can see that you're making the difference. So some people need to know what it is they do that makes a difference. That they can see when they vacuum, they can see the difference. When they wipe a table, I can see the difference. And I can self-reference that. I don't need someone to say, now I want you to go and vacuum here now, now I want you to vacuum here now. Oh, you missed this bit, go and vacuum here now. They hit you with the vacuum cleaner. None of us would like that. So I need a task then that's going to have intrinsic meaning to me. And so this guy now does the coleslaw, and he still, you know, might flap and wiggle a bit, so they get him a pair of headphones. And so now he's in the cafeteria listening to the headphones. And say, we've upgraded the role. Another guy used to strip beds all the time. Right? It's really annoying to live with someone who strips a bed and never makes it. Right? They got him a job in a motel where you have to strip the beds. Now we've got a functional place for bed stripping. And he was great at it. Like, he tried to get into rooms that were still occupied. So one day he got doubled back behind the bed making crew and stripped them all again. They realised they had to better lock the door as you leave that room. Don't leave them open or he'll be back, you know. So we're upgrading the role. Now there's a place, now he's going to work. And then you can say to him at home, you only do that at work. You don't do that at home. Oh. And then he waits for the next day where he can go and do something. You can't always do that, but it gives you, these are just some examples of how you might take a fairly neutral or even negative role that someone has and think about ways, where does this belong and how you might upgrade it. Another way of looking at this is sometimes don't aim too big. Especially in some backgrounds, people have never held a single valued role. The only roles they know have all been negative roles, to be the eternal child or the object of ridicule or the sick and diseased person, the menace. You know, they know those roles back to front. Right? And it'll take a little while to learn some new roles. So sometimes start small, start with a little role. And this is particularly good for young children. You can start with little roles. You know, 18-month-olds can be learning to empty the cutlery in the dishwasher. Right? And so little roles are being acquired from that age. And that helps people to become very employable later on because they've acquired little roles. So a person I know in a group home was given the role of being the garbage putter-outerer. And this is the only role he ever had, like, that was positive. And so he lived for Tuesday when he put the bin out. And if anyone else put the bin out, there was blood. You know, it's like, this is his role. And so it's interesting to see when people have something like that, you start to see how it transforms them, how they start to change to be that. The sad thing of that story is that the group home didn't give him any other roles. They just, once a week, been put her out and said, well, if you could do that so well, what's next? And what's next? And another little role, another little role. And as Meg said, some roles even create other roles and you didn't even expect it. Serendipity occurs. That means that, you know, opportunities that just occurred, and because you're looking for the good life, you're now alert to those opportunities arising and seizing it. But if you're not alert, you just look at the ground and miss it all. So that's why sometimes these visions and this idea, your touchstone of the good life, gets you thinking and seeing stuff that's happening all around, and we can take advantage of it. But if we're not looking, we will miss all of that. There's actually a song about this called From Little Rolls, Big Rolls Grow. You've heard that song, haven't you? It's a new version of it. Don't give up the day job. So another way of looking at this is that some of you might know people who live life in a very precise way, kind of rule-based. They really need and like routine, hard for them to predict, you know, so they want things to be exactly right. And rules work really well that way. Some roles work well because they are exact. You have to be at work at this time, wear that shirt, do this thing. And some people will thrive with that kind of role. Then there are other roles that aren't so clear-cut. They're more ambiguous. And that could be good for people who, well, I'm good one day and the next day I'm not so good. I'm just not there today. And roles like being an artist is very flexible because no one dictates when you do it to be an artist. And how do you be an artist? And where do you be an artist? Well, you decide when you're ready. And so think of roles like that for some people that may need roles that are more flexible for the variations, you might say. They go through a role. Other people, clear-cut, really precise. And that'll... Now, finally, I want to comment that Meg gave me an opening there to talk about, what about the support people, whether paid or unpaid? What do they do as they support a role? Well, they need a role too that complements the one the person is getting. If they're going to be a gym member, they don't need a mother to take them to the gym, or someone who looks like a mother, or someone who even looks like a support worker, because that undermines the role of gym member. I'm not going to be a gym member and have a support. That only makes me look like a client. So I need a support worker who actually also looks like a gym member, or co-participant, or a fitness instructor. Better still, just get a fitness instructor. You know, those kind of things. So you think, what is the complementary role to this? What do other people need to be that are supportive of the roles that we're needing to attain? So you might like to get with us if you've got any more questions about that, and we've also we can give you other avenues of training if you want to learn a bit more about that as well to come your way.
So I think some of us have started, or we've become very interested actually in role-based recruitment, supporting people rather than the idea of a generic disability support worker, because really what is that? So if you're looking at role-based recruitment, because we're talking at lunchtime with some people, and it's I talk to some families, and they say their adult son or daughter has been going with a support worker to the same club for 10 years and they still don't know anyone. And it's sort of like, well, what's happening there? Well, probably because the support worker looks like a support worker, and they sit in the same over here, and it's like the community know what that is, and they stay away. Because it's like you've got an alarm on your head saying, client, this is a service, you know. So actually the person's not regarded by the other people as a club member.
So the asset's gone, Meg, hey? There's no asset to be seen and everyone flees.
And it can actually be quite debilitating. Instead of enhancing for the person's life, it can be debilitating because they feel even more isolated, even more alone. All of those sorts of things. But if you actually looked at the recruitment of the supports still required, so how do you go about it? Well, who else is already a club member? How could we recruit someone from the club to support the person be a club member instead of it just being an activity in the program for the week? I know when Joss, my daughter, we were thinking about roles for her outside of school, and she had a work role. So then we were thinking about a community role, and she always loved children. She did child studies at high school. And so we thought about, well, where are the children? Where are children in our community? You know, that's where we started her interests. We mapped the community. Where are all the kids? Okay, well, there's mums and bubs, and there's playgroup, and there's formal childcare, and there's Sunday school, and anywhere we could think there were groups of children. And then that led us to our local pool that has a creche, like the leisure centre, that has a creche with volunteers. It's run by all volunteers. Well, that'd be great. The role fit her so well that she didn't need any support at all to fulfil that role at the creche. But we thought at the time with staff, if she did need to learn the role of creche volunteer, we would recruit an ex or current creche volunteer to teach her the role. You can see in that learning, a disability support worker would probably have had nothing to offer because she needed to learn the role. Are you getting it? How that works? Just quickly, another example was when Joss was learning to cook, because she didn't, at home with me, she could have learned from me. I'm actually quite a good cook, look at the size of me. Never trust a skinny cook. Anyway. But, that's my role in the house. She wasn't going to learn how to cook from me because Mum, you do that. So I thought, okay, we need someone to come in and help her cook her own meals in preparation for leaving home. And so I was working with the service at the time. The service said, oh, look, we've got this great girl. I think you'll really like her. We'll send her out to meet you and all the rest. And sure enough, she turned up. She was lovely. She was about 21. Gorgeous looking thing. Really friendly. Great rapport. She was still living at home, hadn't cooked a thing in her life. Right? She would have been great in the role of social support, going out, partying or going to the raffles at the club. But as far as, a support to Jocelyn learn the role of a homemaker, she was hopeless. But that's the way we've traditionally done disability support, employment sort of stuff. So I think thinking about the role and thinking about the match of the support is actually really, has a great opportunity for us to help people to get it right in the eyes of the community. And then if it's right in the eyes of the community, it's more likely the community will step forward because they understand what's happening. It's familiar to them. Okay, now just...
So both get to succeed here.
Yeah.
A great role for the support, and they're clear about what they're to do and why.
That's right.
And so they're getting a life, and so is the person that they're supporting.
Yeah. And it's quite active. It's more of an active role for the staff member as well. Like sitting with someone having a drink in a club and doing that it's so boring, really. Particularly if the person doesn't speak very much. And whereas if the person's role is as the introducer to the other people in the club, and they know the people in the club because they're a club member, it's an active role. And so it's better for the staff member as well as more advantageous to the person being supported. So just in closing, we had some ideas, John and I had some ideas around the value of planning. I know we've talked about planning, blah, 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 like Jacob said. But the actual, I think John touched on it, when you're looking for something, you're more likely to see it. And that's really some of the essence of planning. Once you start getting into a planning mindset, you're already active instead of waiting. And when you're active, you're more likely to see opportunities. I was lucky enough to visit Canada, and there was a mother there that we met. I actually went to her daughter's house, and she had lived in an institution for many, many years and had very high support needs. But the mother at the ripe age of 70 decided she had to get her adult daughter, in her 40s I think she was, out of that institution before she died. And so she started meeting with other people, planning. She had the vision of that. Planning, thinking, engaging support from her other adult sons and daughters who really had never had anything to do with their sister. And one day she was walking down the road to the shops and she saw a for sale sign. She said, that is her house. That is her house. She went straight away, found the money, begged, borrowed and stole, and someone gave, a friend of the family offered some money because they weren't of well means. But she said, if I hadn't have had the plan and the vision, I would have walked straight past that for sale sign and not have even seen it. And so that's part of why it's so important to have that vision and the planning thing. The other thing is too, like if you do have your plan and your idea, you don't have to be stuck with it. We heard from Jacob, he tries lots of things. And I loved the little circle, you know, like routine just goes on itself, like this. Whereas trying new things is open, it's open-ended. So you can change, you can grow, you can do different things. So even though we have our plan, we have to be open to some things work and some things don't. But I would encourage people to try things for a while. Because I do see a lot of people try things and after the third go, that's how he doesn't like it. And many people take, like, maybe a lot longer than that.
Broccoli's like that.
Sorry?
Broccoli is like that.
Yeah. So, so taking, always being mindful of new opportunities and things. You don't have to sort of stick to what you're doing if it's clearly not working. And that's one of the beauties about the self-directed approach. You can change at any time. You can think, that's absolutely not happening, let's move on. So, anyway, I hope that's given you a little insight into how roles can assist people.
Was it Wendy Strove who said it's never too early and it's never too late?
Never too late.
And I thought your story was wonderful.
Yeah.